Okay, let's be honest. My family wasn't exactly known for their stellar observation skills, especially when it came to me. It was like I had this amazing talent for blending into the background, becoming invisible in a crowd of perfectly polished people. My parents, bless their oblivious hearts, were masters of the overlook Emma game. Growing up, it was always about my siblings. Ethan, the eldest, was the golden boy, destined to take over the family business. Sophia, the middle child, was the social butterfly, charming everyone with her dazzling smile and effortless grace. And then there was me, Emma, the youngest, the quiet one, the one who preferred books to parties and daydreaming to networking. It wasn't that they were mean or anything. They just didn't really see me. I was like a piece of furniture, a comfortable armchair they barely noticed until they needed a place to rest their weary and probably designer-clad butts. Emma, honey, be a dear and fetch my purse, would you? My mom would say, her eyes already scanning the room for someone more interesting to talk to. Emma, sweetie, why don't you go play with your dolls? The adults are talking, my dad would say, his attention focused on the latest stock market report. And my siblings? Well, they were too busy with their own fabulous lives to even notice I existed. Ethan was always off on some business trip, closing deals and making millions. Sophia was constantly surrounded by friends, attending galas and charity events, her social calendar overflowing with glamorous engagements. Me? I was there, in the background, blending into the wallpaper, fading into the shadows. It wasn't that I was unhappy, exactly. I had a comfortable life, a loving family, sort of, all the material things a girl could want. But there was always this emptiness, this nagging feeling that I didn't truly belong, that I was just an extra in the movie of their lives. And that brings us to the airport. We were on our way to Greece, a family vacation to celebrate my father's latest business triumph. I was actually looking forward to it, to the sunshine, the beaches, the ancient ruins. Maybe, just maybe this time, they would see me, notice me, appreciate me. Yeah, I know, wishful thinking. The airport was a chaotic whirlwind of people, luggage, and announcements. I was exhausted from the early morning flight and the endless security checks. So I found a quiet corner, curled up on a bench, and drifted off to sleep. The next thing I knew, I was waking up to an eerie silence. The airport was deserted. The departure board was blank. My family was gone. They had left me, forgotten me, abandoned me in a foreign country, without a word, without a backward glance. At first, I panicked. My heart pounded in my chest. My breath caught in my throat. I searched frantically for my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed my mother's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried my father, my siblings, even the family assistant. No answer. They had left me. Again, I sank onto the bench, tears welling up in my eyes. The hurt was profound, the loneliness overwhelming. It was like a physical blow, a punch to the gut that knocked the wind out of me. They had forgotten me, not just at the airport, but in life. I was the forgotten daughter, the afterthought, the invisible one. And in that moment, I knew that something had to change. I couldn't keep living like this, in the shadows, invisible, unappreciated. I needed to find my own way, my own path, my own life. A life where I was seen, where I mattered, where I belonged. And as I sat there, in the deserted airport, the echoes of my family's absence ringing in my ears, a strange sense of calm settled over me. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. Okay, so there I was, stranded in the Athens airport, feeling like a character in a bad sitcom. My family, the masters of out of sight, out of mind, had successfully managed to forget me. Again. But this time, something felt different. Instead of the usual wave of panic and hurt, a strange calmness settled over me. It was like this weird sense of liberation, like, okay, they'd forgotten me. Big deal. What was new? I mean, it sucked, obviously. Being left behind in a foreign country by your own family isn't exactly a confidence booster. But then, a thought popped into my head, a rebellious little spark in the midst of my emotional fog. Screw them? Yeah, screw them. They wanted to jet off to Mykonos and pretend I didn't exist? Fine, I'd make my own adventure. I had money, a credit card with a generous limit, thanks, Dad, and a passport. What else did I need? Suddenly, the world seemed full of possibilities. I could go anywhere, do anything. I could climb Mount Everest, learn to tango in Argentina, join a traveling circus. The options were endless. But then another thought, a quieter one this time, whispered in my ear, Paris, the city of lights, of love, of croissants and cobblestone streets. It had been a childhood dream, a place I'd longed to visit ever since I saw a picture of the Eiffel Tower in a travel magazine. And now, here I was, with the opportunity to actually go there. The decision was made in an instant. I marched over to the nearest ticket counter, my heart pounding with a mixture of trepidation and excitement. "One ticket to Paris, please," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The ticket agent, a bored-looking woman with a thick accent, raised an eyebrow. "One way?" she asked. "One way," I confirmed, a grin spreading across my face. As I boarded the plane, a wave of nervous energy washed over me. This was it. I was actually doing this. I was leaving my family, my past, my comfort zone behind. I was stepping into the unknown, embracing the uncertainty, taking a leap of faith. But beneath the nerves, there was a deeper feeling, a sense of exhilaration, of freedom. For the first time in my life, I was truly on my own. No expectations, no obligations, no one to tell me what to do or who to be. It was terrifying, yes, but also incredibly liberating. The flight was a blur of anticipation and anxiety. I stared out the window, watching the clouds drift by, my mind racing with thoughts, plans, dreams. What would I do in Paris? Where would I stay? Who would I meet? The possibilities were endless, and the uncertainty was both thrilling and daunting. As the plane touched down at Charles de Gaulle Airport, a wave of excitement washed over me. I had made it. I was in Paris, alone, yes, but also free. Free to explore, to discover, to reinvent myself. I stepped off the plane, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The air was filled with the sounds of a foreign language, the smells of freshly baked bread and strong coffee. The world stretched before me, a vast, unknown landscape waiting to be explored. And as I took my first tentative steps onto Parisian soil, I knew that this was just the beginning of my adventure, the beginning of a journey that would lead me to discover who I truly was, what I truly wanted, and where I truly belonged. The beginning of a new chapter, a new story, a new life. Stepping out of the Charles de Gaulle airport was like stepping into a movie set. Okay, maybe not a movie set exactly, but definitely a postcard. The air was crisp and clear, with that distinct Parisian smell of freshly baked bread, strong coffee, and something else I couldn't quite place. It was a good smell, though, a smell that said, "Welcome to a place where things are done differently." I hopped in a taxi, and the ride into the city was a whirlwind of impressions. Grand boulevards lined with elegant buildings, quaint side streets with charming cafes, and glimpses of iconic landmarks, the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, the Arc de Triomphe, all whizzing by in a blur of Parisian beauty. My hotel was a small, charming place, tucked away in a quiet side street in the Marais district. The room was tiny, with a slanted ceiling and a view of a charming courtyard. But it was perfect. It felt cozy, intimate, like a secret hideaway in the heart of this bustling city. After dumping my bags, I set out to explore. First stop, the Eiffel Tower, of course. It was even more impressive in person, soaring above the city like a giant iron sentinel. I wandered around its base, snapping photos, marveling at its intricate design, and trying to ignore the hordes of tourists jostling for the perfect selfie. Next, I strolled along the Seine, the river sparkling in the afternoon sun. Street musicians serenaded passers-by with their melodies. Artists displayed their colorful creations, and lovers strolled hand in hand, their laughter echoing through the air. It was all so romantic, even for a solo traveler like me. I stopped at a small cafe, drawn in by the aroma of freshly baked croissants. The waiter, a charming young man with a mischievous grin, greeted me with a cheerful "Bonjour, mademoiselle." My attempts at ordering in my broken French were met with amusement and encouragement, and soon I was savoring a delicious croissant and a strong café au lait, feeling utterly Parisian. The next few days were a whirlwind of exploration. I wandered through the Louvre, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of masterpieces, but still managing to be captivated by the Mona Lisa's enigmatic smile and the Venus de Milo's timeless beauty. I climbed the Arc de Triomphe, rewarded with a breathtaking panoramic view of the city. I explored the charming streets of Montmartre, watching street artists create their masterpieces and soaking in the bohemian atmosphere. I even ventured into the catacombs, a labyrinth of underground tunnels, lined with the bones of millions of Parisians. It was creepy, yes, but also strangely fascinating, a reminder of the city's long and complex history. But it wasn't just the landmarks that captivated me. It was the everyday moments, the small details that made Paris so unique. The charming flower shops with their colorful displays, the quaint bookstores with their overflowing shelves, the bustling markets with their exotic aromas and vibrant energy, and the people. The Parisians were a fascinating mix of chic sophistication and down-to-earth charm. They were quick with a smile, a witty remark, a helpful gesture. I chatted with shopkeepers, baristas, and fellow tourists, exchanging stories, tips, and impressions of this magical city. I even had a brief but memorable encounter with a grumpy old man in a beret who scolded me for not properly appreciating the art of the baguette. It was terrifying and hilarious in equal measure. As the days passed, I felt myself changing, growing, evolving. The Parisian vibe was infectious, seeping into my soul, loosening my inhibitions, awakening a sense of adventure and a thirst for new experiences. I was no longer the forgotten daughter, the invisible girl. I was Emma, the explorer, the adventurer, the one who was finally discovering her own path, her own rhythm, her own place in the world. Paris was more than just a city. It was a catalyst, a spark that ignited a fire within me, a fire that would burn brightly, guiding me towards a future I had never dared to dream of. It was a rainy afternoon in Paris, the kind of day that makes you want to curl up with a good book and a cup of hot chocolate. But I was determined to explore, to soak up every drop of Parisian charm, even if it meant braving the drizzle. I ducked into a cozy little cafe, seeking refuge from the downpour. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries filled the air, a comforting contrast to the dreary weather outside. I found a small table by the window, ordered a café au lait, and settled in to watch the world go by. Suddenly, a voice startled me. "Excusez-moi, mademoiselle, is this seat taken?" I looked up to see a young man, tall and slender, with a mop of dark, curly hair and a pair of the most captivating green eyes I had ever seen. He held a dripping umbrella and a worn copy of Les Miserables. "No, go ahead," I said, gesturing to the empty chair. "Merci," he said, his smile lighting up his face. "I'm Jean-Luc." "Emma," I replied, returning his smile. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked, his English surprisingly good, with a charming French accent. "No, I'm from the States," I admitted. "Ah, an American in Paris," he said, his eyes twinkling. "What brings you to our fair city?" "Just exploring," I said, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. "Exploring, eh?" he chuckled. "Well, you've come to the right place. Paris is a city full of surprises." We chatted for a while, about Paris, about books, about life. I learned that Jean-Luc was a student studying literature at the Sorbonne. He was passionate about art, music, and history, and his enthusiasm was contagious. "You know," he said, leaning forward conspiratorially, "there's a hidden gem just around the corner. A small art gallery with the most amazing collection of impressionist paintings. Would you be interested in seeing it?" "I'd love to," I said, feeling a flutter of excitement. We stepped back out into the rain, Jean-Luc holding his umbrella over us as we walked. The gallery was small and intimate, filled with vibrant canvases that seemed to glow in the soft light. Jean-Luc was a knowledgeable guide, pointing out details I would have missed, sharing his insights and interpretations. As we wandered through the gallery, I felt a connection with Jean-Luc, a spark of something special. He was intelligent, witty, and passionate, with a kind smile and a twinkle in his eye that made my heart skip a beat. "This one is my favorite," he said, stopping in front of a painting of a vibrant sunset over the Seine. "Monet captures the light so perfectly, don't you think?" "It's beautiful," I agreed, mesmerized by the play of colors on the canvas. We stood there for a moment, lost in the beauty of the painting, the silence between us filled with an unspoken connection. As we left the gallery, the rain had stopped, and the sun was peeking through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the city. "Would you like to grab a coffee?" Jean-Luc asked, his eyes hopeful. "I'd love to," I said, my heart doing a little happy dance. As we walked towards a nearby cafe, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe being left behind wasn't so bad after all. Maybe it was fate, a chance encounter, a spark that ignited a flame. Maybe this was just the beginning of a Parisian adventure, a journey filled with unexpected twists and turns, new discoveries, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of love. Paris was doing something to me. It wasn't just the sights, the sounds, the charmingly grumpy old men in berets. It was like the city itself was awakening something inside me, a dormant part of myself I hadn't known existed. And that something, it turned out, was a passion for food. Okay, I'd always liked food. Who doesn't? But in Paris, food was different. It wasn't just fuel, it was an art form, a sensory experience, a celebration of life. Every meal was an adventure, a journey of flavors and textures, a story told on a plate. One evening, I stumbled upon a tiny bistro tucked away in a quiet alley. The aroma wafting from the open kitchen was intoxicating, a symphony of herbs, spices, and simmering sauces. I hesitated for a moment, intimidated by the intimate setting and the lack of an English menu. But my stomach and my curiosity got the better of me. I stepped inside, the warmth of the bistro enveloping me like a hug. The owner, a woman with a kind smile and flour-dusted apron, greeted me with a cheerful "Bonsoir, mademoiselle. Une table pour un?" I nodded, my French still shaky, but improving with every interaction. She led me to a small table by the window, handed me a menu, and with a wink said, "Don't worry, I'll translate." The menu was a culinary poem, a list of dishes that sounded both familiar and exotic. With the owner's help, I settled on a classic French onion soup, followed by a coq au vin that smelled divine. The food was a revelation. The soup was rich and savory, the onions caramelized to perfection, the broth infused with a depth of flavor I had never experienced before. And the coq au vin, oh my God. The coq au vin. The chicken was tender and succulent, the sauce velvety and complex, the mushrooms earthy and fragrant. It was a symphony of flavors, a culinary masterpiece that danced on my tongue. As I savored the last bite, the chef emerged from the kitchen, a tall, imposing man with a stern expression and a toque blanche perched atop his head. He surveyed the dining room, his eyes sharp and critical, then his gaze landed on me. "Mademoiselle," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle, "you seem to be enjoying your meal." "Huh, it's incredible," I stammered, feeling a blush creep up my cheeks. "The best coq au vin I've ever had." He nodded, a hint of a smile softening his features. "Merci. It's a classic, but a challenging one to master. The balance of flavors, the textures, the timing, it all has to be perfect." "It is perfect," I insisted. He spent the next few minutes talking about the dish, the ingredients, the techniques, his passion for cooking evident in every word. I listened, mesmerized, my own culinary curiosity awakening. "Where did you learn to cook?" I asked, my voice filled with admiration. "My grandmother," he said, his eyes softening with nostalgia. "She taught me everything I know. She had a small restaurant in Lyon, and I spent my childhood in her kitchen, watching, learning, absorbing the magic of food." He talked about the importance of fresh ingredients, the respect for tradition, the creativity of experimentation. He spoke of cooking as an art form, a way to express oneself, to connect with others, to share a piece of your soul. As I listened to him, a spark ignited within me, a passion, a yearning, a desire to create, to experiment, to transform simple ingredients into culinary masterpieces. I wanted to learn, to grow, to master the art of cooking. The next day, I found myself browsing cookbooks in a charming little bookstore. I bought a few classics, a couple of modern guides, and a beautiful illustrated encyclopedia of French cuisine. Back in my tiny hotel room, I spread them out on the bed, my fingers tracing the pages, my mind buzzing with ideas. I started small, with simple recipes, basic techniques. A classic omelet, a creamy potato gratin, a rustic apple tart. The kitchen in my hotel room was barely bigger than a closet, but I made it work, improvising, adapting, experimenting, and to my surprise, I was good. Really good. The flavors were balanced, the textures perfect. The presentation, well, let's just say I was getting there. I cooked for myself, for Jean-Luc, who declared my creations magnifique, even for the grumpy old man downstairs, who grudgingly admitted that my baguette wasn't completely atrocious. With every dish I created, my confidence grew, my passion deepened, my vision expanded. I wasn't just cooking, I was creating, expressing, connecting. I was discovering a part of myself I had never known existed, a talent, a passion, a purpose. And as the aroma of my latest culinary creation filled my tiny Parisian room, I knew that this was just the beginning of my journey, a journey that would take me far beyond the confines of my family, my past, my expectations, a journey that would lead me to a future filled with flavor, creativity, and the boundless joy of cooking. Of course, I had limited contact with my parents. They called when they realized that they had forgotten me, and I told them it's fine. I'm having a great time in Paris. But then I had to go home. My visa expired, and I needed to plan my next steps. I had new ambitions. Okay, so I was officially obsessed. Cookbooks were piled high on every surface in my tiny apartment. My fridge was overflowing with exotic ingredients, and my attempts at recreating classic French dishes were becoming increasingly ambitious, and thankfully, increasingly edible. But I wanted more. I wanted to learn from the best, to hone my skills, to immerse myself in the world of haute cuisine. And that meant one thing, Le Cordon Bleu. Yeah, that Le Cordon Bleu. The legendary culinary school, the holy grail of aspiring chefs, the place where culinary dreams were made, or broken, depending on your skills with a whisk. The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. Me, Emma, the forgotten daughter, the accidental tourist, applying to one of the most prestigious culinary schools in the world, it seemed crazy, audacious, completely out of my league. But then I remembered that feeling in the bistro, the spark that ignited when the chef spoke about his passion, the yearning to create, to express, to master the art of cooking. And I knew, with a certainty that surprised even myself, that this was what I wanted. This was my path, my purpose, my chance to finally become the person I was meant to be. So I did it. I Googled Le Cordon Bleu application and dove headfirst into a world of forms, essays, and culinary challenges. The application process was intense. Essays on my culinary philosophy, which I had to basically invent on the spot, detailed descriptions of my cooking experience, limited but enthusiastic, and a video submission of me preparing a signature dish, a slightly disastrous attempt at a soufflé that thankfully didn't collapse on camera. And then there was the interview. I flew to Paris again, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands clammy with nerves. The panel of interviewers were intimidating. Renowned chefs, culinary experts, and stern-faced administrators who seemed to dissect my every word, every gesture, every culinary aspiration. "Why le cordon bleu, mademoiselle?" one of the chefs asked, his eyes sharp and scrutinizing. "Because," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "I want to learn from the best. I want to push myself, to challenge myself, to become the best chef I can be." "And what is your culinary vision?" another interviewer asked, her tone skeptical. I want to create food that tells a story," I said, my voice gaining confidence. "Food that evokes emotions, that connects people, that celebrates life." "Ambitious," the chef remarked, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. The interview lasted an eternity, a grueling interrogation of my skills, my passion, my commitment. I stumbled over my words, my hands sweating, my mind racing. But I also spoke with a newfound conviction, a passion that I hadn't realized I possessed. And then, after weeks of agonizing wait, the email arrived. Subject line, "Congratulations!" I screamed. I jumped up and down. I did a little victory dance around my tiny apartment, narrowly avoiding a collision with a precarious stack of cookbooks. I was in. Le Cordon Bleu, me, Emma, the forgotten daughter, the accidental chef, was officially a student at one of the most prestigious culinary schools in the world. It was a dream come true, a turning point, a moment that redefined my life. I was no longer just drifting, following the currents of fate. I had a goal, a purpose, a direction. I was on a path, a culinary adventure that would lead me to places I had never imagined, to a future filled with flavor, creativity, and the boundless joy of cooking. And as I packed my bags, my heart filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a new challenge, a new me. Okay, let's just say Le Cordon Bleu wasn't exactly a walk in the park. It was more like a marathon, uphill, in the rain, with a grumpy Michelin-starred chef chasing you with a whisk. The days were long, the nights were short, and the pressure was intense. We were up before dawn, prepping ingredients, practicing techniques, and memorizing recipes that were longer than War and Peace. The kitchens were a whirlwind of activity, knives flashing, flames roaring, chefs barking orders in a mix of French and frustrated sighs. Thorne, your julienne is an abomination! Are you trying to make a salad or a stew? Chef Pierre would bellow, his voice echoing through the stainless steel kitchen. More salt, more butter, more passion. This dish needs to sing, not whisper, Chef Marie would declare, her eyes flashing with culinary fire. It was tough, no doubt. There were days when I wanted to throw in the towel, to trade my chef's knife for a one-way ticket back to my comfortable, albeit unfulfilling life. But then I'd remember that spark, that passion that had led me here, and I'd push through, determined to prove myself, to master the art of cooking, and slowly, gradually, I started to get it. My knife skills sharpened, my sauces thickened, my soufflés, thankfully, rose. I learned to balance flavors, to create textures, to plate dishes with an artistic flair. I experimented with new ingredients, explored different cuisines, and discovered a creativity I hadn't known I possessed. Emma, this is incredible, my classmate, a shy Japanese girl named Hana, would say, her eyes wide with admiration as I presented my latest creation, a deconstructed apple pie with a miso caramel sauce. You have a real talent, ma chérie, Jean-Luc would say, his smile warm and encouraging, as he savored my experimental, lavender-infused crème brûlée. The camaraderie with my fellow students was a lifeline. We were a motley crew from all corners of the globe, united by our shared passion for food. We studied together, cooked together, laughed together, cried together, and occasionally even stole a few bites of forbidden chocolate from the pastry kitchen together. Don't tell Chef Pierre. Did you see Chef Marie's face when that guy tried to serve his raw chicken? Carlos, a boisterous Spaniard with a flair for the dramatic, would whisper, his eyes wide with amusement, I swear, if I have to peel another potato, I'm going to lose it. Sophie, a petite French girl with a surprisingly dry wit, would groan, her hands covered in potato starch. We were a team, a family, bound by the shared experience of culinary boot camp. We pushed each other, supported each other, and celebrated each other's successes. And as the years passed, I felt myself changing, growing, evolving. The shy, insecure girl who had arrived in Paris was gone, replaced by a confident, capable young woman with a passion for food and a vision for the future. I had found my place, my purpose, my tribe, and I knew with a certainty that warmed my soul that this was just the beginning of my culinary adventure. Graduation from Le Cordon Bleu was a blur of white hats, tearful goodbyes, and promises to stay in touch, which, let's be honest, rarely happen. But I wasn't focused on the past, I was looking towards the future. Armed with my diploma and a newfound confidence, I was ready to take on the culinary world. Jean-Luc, bless his supportive heart, had found us a tiny apartment in Montmartre, above a charming little boulangerie. The kitchen was small, but it was mine. My own culinary playground, where I could experiment, create, and hopefully build a name for myself. I spent months working tirelessly, perfecting my techniques, developing my own style, and creating a menu that reflected my unique culinary vision. I drew inspiration from my travels, my experiences, my memories, infusing classic French cuisine with a touch of global flair. The restaurant, Le Papillon, the butterfly, was a labor of love. Jean-Luc, with his artistic eye, helped me design the space, creating a warm, inviting atmosphere that reflected my personality and my cuisine. We opened our doors with a mix of excitement and trepidation, hoping that Paris, the culinary capital of the world, would embrace our little butterfly. The first few months were a whirlwind of long hours, demanding customers, and endless challenges. But we persevered, fueled by our passion, our dedication, and the unwavering support of our growing clientele. The reviews were positive. The The word of mouth spread like wildfire, and soon, Le Papillon was the hottest table in town. And then the phone call came. It was a crisp autumn morning, the smell of freshly baked bread wafting in from the boulangerie below. I answered the phone, my heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. Bonjour, est-ce que c'est Mademoiselle Emma Thorne? A voice asked in heavily accented English. Oui, c'est moi, I replied, my voice trembling slightly. Congratulations, Mademoiselle Thorne, the voice said. Le Papillon has been awarded 1 Michelin star. 1 Michelin star. The words echoed in my mind, their significance hitting me like a tidal wave. A Michelin star, the ultimate culinary recognition, the symbol of excellence, the dream of every chef. I screamed, I dropped the phone. I did a victory dance around the kitchen, narrowly avoiding a collision with a simmering pot of sauce. Jean-Luc rushed in, his eyes wide with alarm. Emma, what's wrong? Are you all right? We got a star, I shrieked, tears of joy streaming down my face. A Michelin star. He stared at me for a moment, then a grin spread across his face. No way, seriously? Seriously? I confirmed, grabbing him and twirling him around. We celebrated with champagne, with tears, with a passionate kiss that tasted of dreams come true. The Michelin star was more than just an award. It was a validation, a recognition of my talent, my hard work, my passion. It was a symbol of my journey, my transformation, my triumph. The news spread like wildfire. Reservations poured in, interviews were scheduled, and congratulations flooded in from all corners of the globe. Even my family, the masters of Overlook Emma, sent a congratulatory telegram, though I suspected it was more about bragging rights than genuine pride. But their belated recognition didn't matter. I had found my own validation, my own success, my own place in the world. I was no longer the forgotten daughter, the invisible girl. I was Emma Thorne, Michelin-starred chef, culinary artist, and creator of a Parisian dream, and as I stood in my tiny kitchen, the aroma of success filling the air, I knew that this was just the beginning of my culinary adventure. Okay, so picture this. A sunny spring day in Paris, the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the distance, birds chirping their little hearts out, and me, Emma Thorne, Michelin-starred chef, about to walk down the aisle. Not in some stuffy cathedral or fancy hotel ballroom, but in a charming little garden tucked away in a quiet corner of Montmartre. The ceremony was perfect, small, intimate, filled with the people who actually mattered. Jean-Luc's family, my friends from Le Cordon Bleu, the grumpy old man from downstairs who surprisingly shed a tear, and even the chef from that bistro where my culinary journey began. No sign of my own family, of course, but honestly, I didn't miss them. Not one bit. Jean-Luc, bless his stylish soul, looked like he'd stepped out of a Parisian fashion magazine. And me? Well, let's just say I cleaned up pretty well myself. No more frumpy dresses and sensible shoes for this girl. I was rocking a vintage lace gown and a pair of killer heels, feeling like a culinary queen. You look, magnifique, Jean-Luc whispered as I reached his side, his eyes shining with love and admiration. You don't look so bad yourself, I replied, my heart overflowing with happiness. The ceremony was short and sweet, filled with laughter, tears, and promises of a lifetime of love, adventure, and delicious food. And then we were married. Officially, legally, ridiculously in love. The reception was a feast for the senses. We dined under the stars, the Parisian skyline twinkling around us. The food, of course, was the star of the show. Dishes I had created, inspired by our love story, our journey, our shared passion for life, and all its deliciousness. This is the best wedding food I've ever had, Hannah, my friend from Le Cordon Bleu, declared, her mouth full of my signature lavender-infused scallops. You've outdone yourself, ma chérie, Jean-Luc said, his eyes sparkling with pride. This is a masterpiece. Just like you, I whispered, leaning in for a kiss that tasted of champagne and dreams come true. The party went on late into the night, filled with music, dancing, and laughter. As the last of the guests departed, Jean-Luc and I stood on the balcony, overlooking the twinkling city, our arms wrapped around each other. This is perfect, I sighed, my head resting on his shoulder. It is, isn't it? He agreed, his voice soft and warm. We stood there for a long time, lost in the magic of the moment, the city lights reflecting in our eyes. And then Jean-Luc spoke, his voice hesitant. "Emma," he said, "I have something to tell you." "What is it?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat. I I got a job offer," he said, "in New York." New York, my hometown? The place I had escaped from? The place I had vowed never to return to? New York? I repeated, my voice filled with surprise. "I know," he said, his eyes searching mine. "It's unexpected, but it's an amazing opportunity, a chance to work with some of the best minds in my field." I stared at him, my mind racing. New York. It was the last place I wanted to be, but it was also Jean-Luc's dream, his chance to shine, to make his mark on the world. And then I realized something. Paris had changed me. It had given me the confidence, the courage, the strength to face my past, to embrace my future, to create my own destiny. I wasn't afraid of New York anymore. I wasn't afraid of my family, my past, my shadows. "New York," I said, a smile spreading across my face. "It's a great city." He looked at me, his eyes filled with relief and gratitude. "Really? You'd be willing to go?" "With you?" I asked, my voice soft. "Anywhere." He pulled me close, his embrace warm and secure. "Thank you, Emma," he whispered. "This means everything." We spent the next few weeks making plans, packing our bags, and saying goodbye to our beloved Paris. It was bittersweet, leaving the city that had given me so much, the city where I had found myself, my love, my passion. But I knew that this wasn't the end. It was just another chapter in our adventure, a new beginning, a new challenge. And as we boarded the plane to New York, my hand clasped tightly in Jean-Luc's, I felt a surge of excitement, a sense of purpose, a knowledge that we were ready to take on the world together. And I had a secret weapon, a plan that had been brewing in my mind ever since Jean-Luc mentioned New York. I wasn't just going back to my hometown, I was going back to make a statement, to show them what they had missed, to prove that the forgotten daughter, the invisible girl, had become a force to be reckoned with. I was going to open a French restaurant, right in the heart of New York City. A restaurant that would rival the best in Paris. A restaurant that would bear my name, my vision, my culinary soul. And I knew, with a certainty that warmed my heart, that this was just the beginning of my American dream. New York City. The city that never sleeps, the concrete jungle, the land of opportunity. It was a far cry from the charming cobblestone streets of Paris, but there was a certain energy, a buzz, a sense of endless possibility that resonated with my newfound ambition. Jean-Luc had settled into his new job, thriving in the fast-paced world of American finance. Me? I was conquering the culinary scene, one perfectly seared scallop at a time. Finding the perfect location for my restaurant had been a challenge. I wanted something with character, something with history, something that spoke to the Parisian soul I carried within me. And then I found it, a beautiful old brownstone in Greenwich Village, tucked away on a quiet, tree-lined street. It was perfect. The renovation was a whirlwind of dust, demolition, and design dilemmas. But with Jean-Luc's support and my unwavering vision, we transformed the space into a Parisian oasis, a haven of elegance and culinary delights. "Emma, this is incredible," Jean-Luc said, his eyes wide with admiration as he surveyed the finished restaurant. "It's like stepping into a different world." "It's our world," I said, taking his hand, my heart swelling with pride. We named it Le Papillon New York, a nod to my Parisian roots and a symbol of my transformation. The menu was a carefully curated collection of my signature dishes, a fusion of French classics and global influences, each plate a work of art, a story waiting to be told. The opening night was a whirlwind of nerves, excitement, and culinary chaos. The kitchen was a symphony of clanging pots, sizzling pans, and shouted orders. I orchestrated the chaos with a newfound confidence, my years of training and experience culminating in this moment. "Order up, table 6, the duck confit," I called out, my voice ringing through the kitchen. "Oui, chef," the line cooks responded, their movements swift and precise. The dining room was packed, a mix of curious New Yorkers, eager foodies, and a few familiar faces from my Parisian days. I watched them as they savored each bite, their faces reflecting the symphony of flavors I had created. This is Exquisite! A woman at a nearby table exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight. The best French food I've ever had. The chef is a genius, her companion agreed, raising his glass in a toast. The reviews were even better than I had hoped. A culinary revelation, one critic raved. A Parisian gem in the heart of New York, another declared. Reservations became impossible to get, the waiting list stretching for months. Le Papillon, New York, was the hottest table in town, the buzz echoing through the city's vibrant culinary scene. I thrived on the energy, the challenge, the constant push to innovate and excel. I spent my days in the kitchen, experimenting with new ingredients, refining my techniques, and creating dishes that push the boundaries of culinary art. Emma, this foie gras torchon is mind-blowing, my sous chef, a talented young woman named Chloe, declared, her eyes wide with admiration. It's all about the balance of flavors, I explained. The sweet, the savory, the acidic. It's like a culinary symphony. You're a maestro, chef, she said with a grin. I love the camaraderie of the kitchen, the shared passion for food, the adrenaline rush of service, but I also cherish the moments of quiet creativity, the hours spent alone in the kitchen, experimenting, innovating, pouring my heart and soul into every dish. And then there were the customers. I loved watching their faces light up as they tasted my creations, their smiles a testament to the power of food to connect, to inspire, to delight. Chef Thorne, a man approached me one evening, his eyes filled with gratitude. That was the most incredible meal I've ever had. Thank you. You're welcome, I said, my heart swelling with warmth. It was my pleasure. Le Papillon, New York was more than just a restaurant. It was a culmination of my dreams, my journey, my transformation. It was a testament to my passion, my resilience, my unwavering belief in myself. And as I stood in the heart of my bustling kitchen, the aroma of success filling the air, I knew that I had finally found my place, my purpose, my home. The maitre d' approached me, a slight frown on his face. Chef Thorne, he said, his voice low, we have a special reservation tonight, table 12, the Thorns. My stomach did a little flip, not of nervousness, but more of mild amusement. The Thorns, my family. After months of glowing reviews and impossible-to-get reservations, they'd finally made it to Le Papillon, New York. Or, more accurately, their publicist had. Table 12, I repeated, a small smile playing on my lips. I'll make sure they have an unforgettable experience. I glanced at Jean-Luc, who was busy overseeing the pastry station. The Thorns are here, I told him, my voice casual. He raised an eyebrow. Really? The real Thorns? The one and only, I confirmed. He chuckled. Well, 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 how the tables have turned. I nodded. Indeed they have. As the maitre d' led them to their table, I watched from the kitchen, my gaze steady, my expression neutral. My parents, looking slightly out of place in the chic, minimalist setting, exchanged nervous glances. Sophia, ever the social butterfly, plastered a wide, albeit slightly strained smile on her face. I gave them a few minutes to settle in, to soak in the atmosphere, to sample the amuse-bouches. Tiny, exquisitely crafted bites of culinary art. Then I made my entrance. Good evening, I said, my voice warm and professional. I'm Emma Thorne. I hope you're enjoying your evening so far. My parents' faces lit up with a mixture of surprise and something akin to awe. Sophia's smile faltered slightly. Emma, darling, my mother gushed, reaching out to hug me. I subtly sidestepped her embrace, offering a polite handshake instead. It's good to see you all, I said, my voice carefully neutral. We're so proud of you, sweetheart, my father said, his voice booming. Le Papillon is magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. Thank you, I replied, my gaze sweeping over their faces. I'm glad you approve. Approve? Sophia echoed, her voice laced with disbelief. Emma, this is incredible. You're a sensation. Everyone's talking about you. Are they? I said, feigning indifference. We always knew you had potential, my mother chimed in, her voice filled with a newfound warmth. You just needed a little push. A little push? I repeated, my eyebrow raised. You mean like being abandoned at an airport in a foreign country? The smiles faded from their faces, the warmth in their eyes turned to a flicker of discomfort. That was a misunderstanding, my father stammered. We were in a rush. We didn't see you. Didn't see me? I echoed, my voice soft but firm. Or didn't want to see me? They were silent, their faces etched with guilt and shame. You know, I continued, my gaze sweeping over them, being forgotten at that airport was the best thing that ever happened to me. They looked at me, their eyes filled with confusion. It freed me, I explained. It gave me the chance to break free from your expectations, your limitations, your indifference. It allowed me to discover myself, my passion, my purpose. Emma, please, my mother pleaded, tears welling up in her eyes. We're so sorry. We were wrong. We want to be a part of your life. Part of my life? I scoffed. Now, when I'm successful? When I'm famous? When I have a Michelin star? No, Emma, that's not, my father began, but I cut him off. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice cold, hard. I know why you're here. You're not here because you love me, because you miss me, because you're proud of me. You're here because I'm successful. You're here because you want to revel in the hype. They were silent, their faces etched with shame and regret. Enjoy your meal, I said, turning to walk away. The chef recommends the duck confit. It's exquisite. I left them there, at their table, surrounded by the buzz of my restaurant, the hum of my success. They were no longer a part of my life, my family, my world. They were just customers. As I walked back to the kitchen, I felt a sense of closure, a sense of peace. I had proven myself, not to them, but to myself. I had built my own life, my own success, my own happiness, and I didn't need their approval, their recognition, their love. I had found my own in the warmth of my kitchen, in the love of my husband, in the joy of creating food that brought happiness to others. I was Emma Thorne, Michelin-starred chef, and I was finally truly free.